Jump and down, I try to reach the time. Oh, come on, man, come on. Make a people alright. Light like a feather. When we light them, na better. We light them, na better. I reckon it could be better. Light like a feather. When we light them, na better. We light them, na better. Give the fire, one bag of wire, jump and sound a feeling in a fire. We connect with you well fine, in juggling our ways and time. In a we made it, right now we said it. Some jump and we see them a dread it. We give them wings to fly, take them on to another ride. We say we're the only one, when your place like ready there tonight. If I wanna weed and if I wanna die, wanna buy, never lose the roots in the game. Better when you're breaking, can I go in one part? Can I go in one part? Can I go in one part? I tell you, put it to the brain, my brain. Don't wanna be insane, no insane. Don't give it up like not again. You should not play down the lane long. We are put it to the brain. Don't wanna be insane, no insane. Don't give it up like not again. Me and down the lane. What that? Yeah, yes, yes. We're burning nine, and it's nine. Rise up every champion. DJ Wayne, DJ Wayne, give it on time, guys, it's more problem, see. That's always in a class, the one in something. DJ Wayne, go loud to the shallow, the magazine. Your place to jump like an N16, N16 like an N16. M16 like an M16, DJ Wayne, no play when he step on the scene. Don't play to jump like an M16, man. Never tired to kill a jump place down. DJ Wayne, you sing on the town. No little boy can't size up or no. DJ Wayne, but it can rap it now. I mean say, hold up you know. Jump and get me out. And shout us about you not stop while you come up. DJ Wayne run the whole night all. DJ Wayne send jump and to bury you down. Bring me along. Come here, man, listen to that already now. DJ Wayne. You know, some of them now about one is door. I tell them, man, phenomenon, man, a real phenomenon. DJ Wayne over on the radio station, man, phenomenon, them a real phenomenon. Who's the name of them a story? Come let's take it back to the city. Nobody like to love us, yeah. We should have loved us. Back to basics. Down the low. Nice and smooth. Ooh, yeah. DJ Wayne, good to go. You make up and believe the times likewise. The friends love it so. He may not have a 45, but he got a doctorate for you. Some boy, he's getting sick around. Cause looking at the act you see. He said like that, he's going up joking from what you do. Okay, gotta get it going because there's a lot to cover this week. First off, thanks Wizzle and Irie FM again this week. The gear has arrived, but at the port of Montego Bay, pretty busy this week. A lot of personal stuff involved. Didn't get it through customs, so next week, see. Greetings and blessings from Sugar Magnolia. It's coming right along, isn't it? It's great to have you, even if it's just to check in on the construction progress. Even better to have you if you specifically turned in for this week's version, or tuned in, I guess I should say. For this week's version of the back page, it's the Manish Water, produced by the GOAT. That is the Rush Hour, ESPN 103.9 FM in Palm Springs, California.
Still adhering to COVID protocols, just like me, Matt McKay, otherwise known as good old Matty. Real quick, I do remember what I felt like in 1994 when Major League Baseball went on strike, only because I was actually paying attention to baseball for maybe the first time in years. And when they went on strike, I stopped caring. Not going to play the World Series for the first time in more than 100 years? My thought was, Major League Baseball doesn't care. Why do I? I was living in Dallas, Texas at the time, and had developed what could only be described as a little relationship, a little bitty one, with the team and the sport that I didn't have in the 80s and 70s, basically. To be clear, I didn't play baseball growing up. I didn't have any formative conversations with my dad while playing catch, none of that stuff. I did, however, like the Orioles in the late 60s and the A's in the early 70s, the latter, because they took the cool sports baton from Joe Namath and took it to the team level. But I didn't love it nearly as much as I loved football and hockey. I just watched it because it was one of the sports offerings on one of the 4 available channels back then. But when my man Jeff Rude sent out an email at the beginning of 2016 saying the Cubs were going to the World Series, who wants to go? My hand went up straight away because, one, I knew traveling with my old colleague and getting in some special golf along the way was a sure bet. And 2, I know a big event when I see one. And the Cubs in the World Series was absolutely going to be one. Of course, it happened just like we thought it would. And I actually fell in love with baseball. Not again, but really for the first time. Because I only sort of liked it before. Now I get to support one of the world's great sports franchises. Now I can sit still for more than 15 minutes and actually enjoy a game. Now I don't need to see anyone clobber someone else physically to enjoy competition. And 9 innings is just about the right amount of time anyone should spend drinking beer. Now I'll watch a baseball game even if the Dodgers aren't playing. Also, now that I'm paying attention, I hear folks gripe about this aspect of the game and whine about another. And while I'm totally not down with designated hitters, ghost runners, and human umpires fluctuating strike zones, I am down with the game. And furthermore, I believe we're in a bit of a golden era right now. When's the last time we had so many superstars playing at once? Maybe back to those late 60s Orioles, Mets, and Pirates teams. So don't complain. Enjoy. Anybody can. And anybody can fall in love with baseball. Because it's entirely lovable. From now till morning, when there is no business like, no business like, no business I know, no business like, no business like, no business. From Mr. Younger, now who are on Irish business. How come we know say Marcus are on my business? DJ we now you must have seen out the business. How come we play your son Damina? I've seen out the business. Sunshine, we know say she no blind in out the business. And she play the most alkaline in out the business. She play piano, who play cup in out the business. But how who make the song up in out the business? DJ First. What? In out the business. In the business, I react in out the business. Lady, ready, need out the business. That man, Eddie, she on the man in the business. All right. Been saving this for you. I had to go for it in order to feel it and get it right. People have been saying for now, maybe 8 to 10 years, wow, this country sure is polarized, not this one, the United States. Man, we've never been more divided. Forgetting that there was a civil war, probably more divided then. And then they rhetorically ask, wow, how did we get here? How did we get to this point? And every time I've heard that question, I say, oh, that's easy. Fox News. That's how we got here. If you're a Fox News watcher, I beg you to hang in with me here as a fellow American for the next 5 minutes, because we've got way more in common than Fox News would tell you or have you believe. America needs strong political parties with clear agendas and policies. But do hear me when I say, in this here time, Fox News is literally the root of all evil in the United States. Everything that's wrong, all the disagreements, all the spoiled holidays, they're not even 6 degrees away from being traced back to Fox News. They're 3 degrees away at the most. When and where I was growing up, there were John Birch Society types. Remember that? They were the outcasts in your extended family, and they were really on the run socially at that time. You know, back then, the John Bircher was known as the crazy uncle, who you knew had weird political views, but he was smart enough not to share them during Thanksgiving and Christmas and ruin the holiday for everyone. However, since Fox News has come on the air, it's reveled in bucking up today's John Birchers to get them to think that X amount of groups and people in the United States are after their country, their jobs, their guns, their women, and that they're running the country. And don't even get them started on those foreigners with the cantaloupe legs who are not the best people. Yep. For those with a conspiracy theory consuming their minds, or those who needed a place to lament the downfall of the white American, Fox News was, and still very much is, their go-to happy place. Fox News' ideology has become so mainstream that those who might have called on their better angels during an internal debate as to what is right and what is wrong were exposed to the Fox doctrine, and their better angels lost out. Oh yeah, all kinds of angry people who are cued into the truth, as opposed to the rest of us sheeple, regularly spew their divisive us versus them bile on the radio these days. All those radio guys owe Fox News a huge debt of gratitude for prepping their audiences to receive that message and allowing them to laugh all the way to the bank. How many of them really believe what they're saying? Alex Jones has admitted in court he doesn't believe what he's saying, but he's still out there saying it. Despite all that, my biggest problem with Fox News as an individual goes beyond how they intentionally mislead a huge portion of our country, nor does it have anything to do with me being a registered Democrat. In fact, I was considered normal until Fox News came along, and it and its viewers made me realize I must be a liberal. What it really has to do with is me being the first person in my family to attain a college degree from a big-ass 4-year state college, too. Some of what I learned was accounting. Some of what I learned was history. Some of what I learned was international relations. But most of it was journalism. I learned about equal time, the FCC, the fairness doctrine, and journalism law. I read The Boys on the Bus, Dispatches, and Voices from the Past. I learned how to field a story. I learned how to write a story that was concise and readable. And first and foremost, I learned that whatever I wrote had to be true and or factual. It's got my name next to it. Being wrong would be the worst thing that could happen. Your work, your word, your accuracy, and your name all add up to credibility. That's all you've got in the journalism game. And Fox News is sloppy. They do a poor job of reporting. It seems they'll report on anything without fact-checking it and then fail to retract when they're wrong. When Rolling Stone and CNN get things wrong, heads roll. That's how you know you're dealing with a legit news source. They fire people when they mess up, and they run a correction when they get it wrong. I work for the Dallas Morning News sports section, a big-time mainstream media outlet. when it was the best that ever was. And it's clear now it's the best newspaper sports section that ever will be. Rule number one there was get something in before the deadline. Their crack editors could massage the most confusing copy into a readable story. Rule 1A was get it right. I knew if I didn't get those two things done over 99% of the time, there were tons of other up-and-coming young college graduates and aspiring journalists who'd love to have the opportunity to do what I couldn't. So when I see our friends at Fox News churning out the chum that clearly would have been considered propaganda back when I was learning and training on journalism, and watching them bend and mold reality to fit an ideology and a way of thinking, rather than finding facts, following where they lead, and presenting them to their audience in a way they can absorb, I see an intentionally divisive disservice to our country. They are actively helping to tear our country apart with alternative facts. And it offends me as a trained journalist. When all the mainstream media outlets that journalists like me want to stick up for all come up with the same storylines, the same quotes, and the same outcomes, it's not because they're colluding. Believe me, they're not. They're actually in the hottest of competitions to be the first to break a story. It's just that the facts of the stories that they're covering are all leading them to the same place. It's why someone once said, facts always seem to have a liberal bias. When's the last time you heard another reliable, universally recognized news source actually cite a report from Fox News or Fox News is now reporting? How often do you hear Fox News pundits start a sentence with, I think, rather than, here's what we know? If you think that's too few, ask yourself this. As a citizen of the Republic, wouldn't it be better for me and all my fellow citizens if all of us knew what was really happening? Now, if you're thinking to yourself right about now that sounded a little bit dated, that piece is 11 years old, yet it applies now more than ever. So please, please, please consider your news sources. And if you're one of those Fox folks, I haven't given up on you. You can come back to us at any time. We're saving a seat for you at the Thanksgiving dinner table. That felt good. That's all I've got for you this week. Probably plenty for now, right? Have a great weekend, and thanks as always for checking in to catch the back page. It's the whipped cream on the key lime pie. That is the Rush Hour, ESPN 103.9 FM in sensational Palm Springs, California. I'm old Matty. I'm going to put away my high visibility work vest and put on my golf clothes this weekend. Hope it's a great one for you, and I'll see you next week right here from the beautiful hills of Hanover, Jamaica.
No cure, a long life ahead with the fruit Jamaican banana planting. We need to secure them. So tropical race 4, take away your spells. That we tell them. Everything comes straight from his club. If I know anything on you, I say you're not. Full of strike on the general. Fresh like melon, every year walk up. And I try to see never stop. Responsibly, socialize responsibly.
Are you ready to catch the biggest cash prize with My Cash? From now until June 28th, you could be one of the lucky winners of $7,500, $75,000, or $150,000 when you use the My Cash app to top up, send money to a friend, pay bills, or pay with your My Cash card online or in a store. With every My Cash transaction, you have a chance to win. Ready to top up your pocket? Download and use the My Cash app today. Terms and conditions apply. Authorized by the Section 53 of the Union and Losses Act. Oh, Ultra Reels, Ultra Reels! The store with the good things that is at it again. Yes, the Top Big Beach of Plaza now having a massive sale, up to 30% off on selected items. And look out for the big Mother's Day special, Friday, May 7th and Saturday, May 8th. Come treat your mother this Mother's Day at Top Big Beach of Plaza, Ultra Reels.
The good thing, when you know, you have to wear the good thing, the good clothes and the good shoes. Wanna move, wanna ready. First of that, you travel with me today.
Make sure Sarah take your money, you know. I'm not traveling with you.
That's funny thing with Egypt.
Red plane operators, it's your time to take the spotlight.
IRFM is giving all red plate operators a chance to win big in Red Plate Spotlight.
Just submit your red plate via a WhatsApp picture to 876-350-2838 and listen to REFM Mondays to Fridays between 6 a.m. and noon, as well as between 7 to 8 p.m. Mondays and Fridays, they are if your plate will be announced to win at least $10,000.
Once announced, you will have 20 minutes to claim your win, which goes up by $10,000 every time someone fails to claim.
You don't have to submit your plate more than once, because once submitted, it remains a possible candidate for every draw until drawn.
No name, phone numbers, or address needed. Only red plate pictures required. Red Plate Spotlight is brought to you by
Sly and Robbie Taxi Records, promoting the new album from Sly and Robbie, Riddles Road, available on all major digital platforms. Get your CDs at the Music Mart South Avenue, Derek Harriet's Queengate Plaza, Me Hungry at the Marketplace, and at One Pop Music Studio, Riddles Road. Records and JR Production with Juju Blood new single White Like Cocaine, available on all digital platforms now. White like cocaine, white like cocaine, keep the foot white like cocaine. White teeth with a routine dog,
Now You Bless and Jam Rock Music Productions, promoting the hot new Mama Africa Rhythm, available on iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, and all major streaming and downloading platforms.
Studio 21 Productions promoting Leroy Artist Brown's blockbuster from the album Ease Up Off the Crime with Leroy and Friends Volume 2, available on all digital platforms. It's a DMI production.
Ease up on the crime, make we have a good time, make we have a good time. Ease up on the crime, make we have a good time, make we have a good time. Now You Bless Music, promoting the hot new single Early Morning from Natty King's latest album Revolution, available on all social media platforms. For info, email nayablessmusic@gmail.com. That's Red Plate Spotlight, this and every weekday, and twice on Mondays and Fridays on the nation's #1 IRFM. Like a taste of grace. Everybody be irate when you listen to irate. Everybody knows irate lead. Them on the little station down the road like some little breed. Come on, hey, keep you with me. Hey. This is the Weekend Bliss is all brought to you by Pepsi. Pepsi for the love of it.
Oh, yeah.
I tell you, something like it's secret on.
Don't you know that we've got our love? Yes, we can love it the way you're feeling. Don't have to tell you, but it's a fact. Let we can take you in. 'Cause no one can stop you. You got to choose them life. Keep your way, play something tough, and they don't stop me. Just like you. And they can